Greetings, YouTube. I'm socially progressive. I'm a bleeding socialist in general, and I do not have the dichotomy of social progressivism and fiscal conservatism. But some social progressives do, people who consider themselves to be liberal and progressive, and yet still think that we should abide by fiscally conservative policies. There's a small problem with that. You can't actually be socially progressive and fiscally conservative at the same time. Because at the heart of fiscal conservatism is capitalism. And capitalism is the polar opposite of social progressivism. Because capitalism requires three things: the concentration of wealth, the exploitation of resources, both natural and human, and poverty. Those three things must exist, or the capitalism collapses. And of course, as capitalism progresses over time, the concentration of wealth gets greater. Fewer and fewer have more and more. The exploitation of the environment, both the planetary environment itself and people in general, gets worse. And of course, poverty has to exist as the stick. That's the motivation that keeps all of us on that capitalistic treadmill. The knowledge that if we don't, that if we try to get off, we will end up losing everything. And I'm caught in the same trap that a whole lot of other people out there. But at least I'm aware there's a trap. And I haven't deluded myself into thinking that the trap isn't a trap. I haven't deluded myself into thinking if I just play the game the way it's supposed to be played, I'll be fine. I won't. Because even if I make it through the cracks, even if I survive, even if I benefit from the system and improve my personal lot, I'll be doing it at the exploitation of my fellow man. Because there is no other way for capitalism to work. Now, if you regulate capitalism a lot and make sure that there's a functioning social safety net, as the way it is done in a number of European countries, you can mitigate the system. You can reduce the exploitation to a minimum, which is, I think, what we should be doing until we can find a way of getting out of the trap. But we don't do that in the U.S. In the U.S., not only do we not minimize the exploitation of humans, the suggestion that we should minimize the exploitation of humans is looked upon as evil, as communist rhetoric, as you're trying to destroy the very fabric of America, because Americans have equated capitalism and democracy, and they aren't the same thing. They're confusing a political system with an economic system. Much the same way many people consider socialism and communism the same thing, even though one is a political system and one is an economic system. Now, I believe that we should have a heavily regulated form of capitalism. I consider it actually functions better than communism. But it should be a social form of capitalism, reducing the suffering to the absolute minimum, making sure that no one falls through the cracks, that no one is homeless or hungry without health care or an education. And then we should be moving towards eliminating capitalism completely. We fix the holes in the boat we're in, but then we design a better boat. And right now in America, not only are we not fixing the holes in the boat we're in, there are people out there actively drilling new holes and then being confused when more and more of us are drowning. Well, the best example I can think of that are the libertarians. They've convinced themselves that if they just punch enough holes, that eventually we'll all be equal. In some regards, that will be true. We'll all be dead. But the wealthy will still be the ones in the lifeboats sailing away while the rest of us are killed. And libertarians haven't figured that out yet. Even though they're supposed to be all kinds of logical, they keep telling me that. And yet they can't see the flaws inherent in the system. They can't see that capitalism itself is about concentration of wealth, the exploitation of people, and poverty. Poverty is baked into the system. What we can do is mitigate as much of that as possible. Make sure that even if you are absolutely ruined by capitalism, you will still not be allowed to die. In America, we don't care. In America, people who show empathy, sympathy, and compassion are derided, are viewed as weak. In America, it's supposed to be dog eat dog, every man for himself, devil take the hindmost. And the people espousing that particular worldview don't seem to understand that the devil's winning. And they're helping him. And that's not right. And I'm tired of listening to the rhetoric. And I'm tired of people out there who say they are progressives helping the devil. So if you are progressive, you can't be fiscally conservative. You have to understand that capitalism is the problem, not the solution. And the best we can do until we can find a way of replacing it is having it be highly regulated. Making sure that everyone is taken care of. Not to mention, that could probably be viewed as the Christian thing to do. Supposedly, America is a Christian country. If I'm not incorrect, Christ said that to follow him, you could have no property, no possessions. That you have to cast everything aside. And yet, we have entire religious systems based around prosperity religion, prosperity gospels, which would seem to be anathema to the very concept of Christ himself. Almost as if there are people willing to use anything they can lay their hands on to support the concepts of capitalism. But what do I know? I'm not Christian. So, if you're progressive, you can't be fiscally conservative. You need to make sure that everyone is taken care of. And capitalism, as it stands in the United States, sure as shoot isn't going to do that. So stop trying to stand on that fence edge, that razor's edge. Hop on down and be progressive. Understand that capitalism is your enemy.